Extreme heat alerts are in effect Tuesday for millions of Americans, stretching from Iowa to Ohio and even into the upper reaches of Michigan. And as the soaring temperatures continue this week, around 270 million Americans will experience temperatures above 90 degrees. More than 100 record highs are possible through Sunday.
We don't need any fancy data to tell us this. It's going to be extremely hot and uncomfortable. In fact, it'll be dangerously hot.
President Joe Biden Tuesday announced a new policy that offers relief to potentially thousands of undocumented immigrants. The White House says the order will allow certain spouses of U.S. citizens without legal status to apply for permanent residency and eventually citizenship.
Steps I'm taking today are overwhelmingly supported by the American people, no matter what the other team says.
Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun took questions from lawmakers Tuesday in his first appearance on Capitol Hill since a panel blew out in January. The company's leader apologized to family members of victims.
And I apologize for the grief that we have caused. And I want you to know we are totally committed in their memory to work and focus on safety.
Those are your headlines. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at your weather on the ones.
Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. Wednesday will start off on the warmer side. We'll call it mild here with 70s in Boston, New York, and Columbus. But these temperatures, 5 to even 12 degrees warmer than typical morning temperatures. Then during the day, with all these 90s here, temperatures running anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees above average. Now, across the Central Plains, these storms here overnight will keep things on the cooler side. Then tomorrow, southern Texas will get slammed with some heavy rainfall coming through, and that could bring some flash flooding through the area for Wednesday.
I'm Sharon Taswell. Wildfires raging in the west as millions in the Northeast and Midwest face sweltering heat. And that's not all. Parts of the Southwest now under a tropical storm warning ahead of what's expected to be the first named storm of the season. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler has a look at the dangerous weather impacting the U.S.
A wall of smoke filled the sky in New Mexico as two wildfires converged like a pair of tongs around the village of Ruidoso, where thousands of people were forced to leave their homes.
It's going to take a lot to get everything back, but as long as lives are saved and, homes are always replaceable.
The area in an extreme drought for nearly a year. In California, several fires are burning across the state. More than 1,000 firefighters are working to contain the Post fire, which has burned more than 15,000 acres since Saturday.
We're talking between 50 and 60 miles an hour gust up on the ridges.
Across the country, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul is alerting parts of the state for a heat wave not seen in decades, activating the National Guard and opening cooling centers.
We don't need any fancy data to tell us this. It's going to be extremely hot and uncomfortable. In fact, it'll be dangerously hot.
Dangerous heat is hitting major metropolitan areas from Chicago to Boston. Meanwhile, in the Gulf, the hurricane season's first threat is churning. The National Hurricane Center predicts the tropical system will unload torrential rains, bringing flooding threats to the U.S.'s western Gulf Coast, parts of Central America, and parts of Mexico. Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
The Biden administration is taking executive action to protect undocumented spouses of American citizens. Reporting tonight from Washington.
Today's a good day.
President Joe Biden announcing the largest expansion of protections to undocumented immigrants in more than a decade. It affects as many as 500,000 people without legal status who are married to U.S. citizens. The change provides these spouses with a pathway to legal residency and eventually citizenship without having to leave the U.S. first. To be eligible, they must have lived in the U.S. for more than a decade and be married before the announcement.
These couples have been raising families, sending their kids to church and school, paying taxes, contributing to our country, but living in the United States all this time with fear and uncertainty. We can fix that, and that's what I'm going to do today.
About 50,000 non-citizen children with a parent married to a U.S. citizen also will be eligible to apply for legal status. Biden made the announcement in marking the 12th anniversary of DACA. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival. As vice president, allows more than 500,000 so-called dreamers, undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children, to live in the U.S. without fear of deportation. Another new policy announced by Biden will enable them to access work visas more easily.
Keeping American families together, making sure that we are protecting American families is a priority for this president.
Former President Donald Trump's campaign attacked the new policies, saying, quote, Biden has created another invitation for illegal immigration through his mass amnesty order. This was the second major policy change this month involving illegal immigration, a major issue in this year's election. 2 weeks ago, Biden announced sweeping new restrictions on asylum claims. The new policy on undocumented spouses could ease anger among Biden's progressive supporters over the new asylum rules. In Washington, Charlotte Scott, Spectrum News.
Open News testimony apologizing to family members of Boeing's 737 MAX victims. Spectrum's Charlotte Scott is in Washington with more on the critical hearing.
This is the blood that is on your hands.
Ahead of Boeing CEO David Calhoun's Capitol Hill testimony Tuesday, a woman whose father died in a Boeing plane crash spoke out. Several victims' families attended the hearing about safety protocols the company allegedly ignored. Calhoun apologized to the families and said the company's culture is far from perfect, but that progress is being made.
It is our job to listen, regardless of how we obtain feedback, and handle it with the seriousness it deserves.
He said the company made significant changes in recent months, including adding an independent quality expert, establishing a safety management system, and revamping engineering efforts. The CEO also pushed back on new whistleblower claims, alleging the company cut corners by losing track of parts that were not up to design standards and that allegedly ended up in some new plane. The new whistleblower is a quality assurance inspector who alleges Boeing hid the parts from the Federal Aviation Administration during an inspection and that he is being retaliated against for speaking out. In a statement, the company said, quote, we continuously encourage employees to report all concerns as our priority is to ensure the safety of our airplanes and the flying public. Ahead of the hearing, Blumenthal said there's mounting evidence that Boeing should be prosecuted. He said he was troubled by the new whistleblower's claims.
The company seems to have continued to put profits and production speed ahead of safety and reliability. And his account of the retaliation against him is particularly chilling.
The Justice Department determined last month that Boeing violated a 2021 settlement that shielded it from criminal charges over 2 737 MAX crashes. Prosecutors have until July 7th to decide how to proceed. Meanwhile, the FAA says it is titanium parts got into Boeing's supply chain. In Washington, Daniel Grimes, Spectrum News.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, a nation's top doctor sounding the alarm on social media apps. Spectrum News spoke directly to the U.S. Surgeon General about the warning.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
The reliability of our products and services. Now, we've taken a new step forward in reliability by identifying potential service issues before they become a problem. If you're affected, we'll contact you and help schedule a free service appointment with one of our expert technicians. The proactive maintenance of our network is one of the many reasons Spectrum delivers the most reliable internet speeds in the nation. Spectrum, keeping you connected.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Stormy weather across the plains for Wednesday. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos, and we're talking about some heavy rainfall here for the Central Plains, but especially down in Texas and southern Texas throughout the day on Wednesday. Take a look at this, wet, and then we're still tracking some of that extreme heat, the hot temperatures going up once again from the Great Lakes all the way out to the Northeast. I mean, you see all these heat advisories all across the area, including some excessive heat warnings up in the New England states. But these heat advisories for some lasting through Thursday, even for Friday. It's not into the weekend where finally we get some relief from the extreme heat. But temperatures will be running about 19 degrees above average there for Boston, 9 to 10 for Columbus and Milwaukee. And then you see right around the Southwest, Las Vegas, Phoenix, temperatures there much closer to average. And that's where we're seeing the triple-digit heat in Vegas, in Phoenix. But then you've got 80s and 90s clear across the eastern half of the country in places that typically will not have it. So those people without adequate air conditioning, make sure that you are seeking shelter in some sort of cool zone, whether it be at a mall or a library, somewhere with AC, because this is the kind of heat that can be pretty dangerous if you're exposed. Pretty strong all across the area. For some of you, this heat, it doesn't take much to really cause some health issues. And then towards the weekend, really right around the weekend, we'll have this ridge of high pressure building out west, and that's going to increase the temperatures there. So look at the next 7 days here in Boston, Massachusetts. The 90s there for Wednesday, Thursday instead of the 70s. And we're talking about almost upper 90s there for Thursday. Back down closer to average Friday, Saturday. And then we go up, but more bearable at least. It'll be in the low 80s. Now, we go to Columbus, Ohio here, and you've got 4 more days of 90s. Then over the weekend, temperatures will drop back down, especially on Monday for the start of the week, closer to average, but then 90 degrees on Tuesday. And New York, 79's the average, and look at all those 80s and 90s.
If your host is expected to last through at least Friday, roughly 150 million are expected to experience temperatures above 90 degrees. President Biden is taking action to protect undocumented spouses of American citizens. The move is expected to shield roughly 500,000 immigrants from potential deportation. And Boeing CEO testified on Capitol Hill amid several investigations into the company related to safety and manufacturing concerns. Dave Calhoun apologized to relatives of people who died in crashes involving 737 MAX jetliners. That's what you need to know this evening. The nation's top doctor is calling on Congress to put warning labels on social media apps. It would be similar to those found on alcohol and tobacco products. Spectrum News anchor Lori Chung spoke earlier to Surgeon General Vivek Murthy and asked him about the decision and what it could mean.
Saying that social media is really contributing to a mental health crisis among young people. What would these labels look like and what would they say?
Well, thanks, Lori. A warning label would appear regularly and in digital form when people were using social media. And what it would do is warn kids and parents about the fact that social media use is associated with significant mental health harms among adolescents. The good news about warning labels is we have a lot of experience using these from tobacco and alcohol. And what that experience has taught us, particularly from tobacco, is that warning labels are effective in both increasing awareness and driving behavior change. And finally, the reason that we have to do this, Lori, is because we are in the middle of a youth mental health crisis, which has become the defining public health challenge of our time. I spend time all around the country with young people and their parents in big cities and small towns, and they're univocal. And what has become clear from the advisory that I published last year and all the evidence we looked at is that social media has emerged as one of the drivers of this mental health crisis. And that's why while we work to make sure that we are pushing for policies and reforms to make the platform safer, it's also important that we warn parents and kids about the harms that we are seeing right now.
Well, in terms of taking action, Congress would have to act on this. What has been the feedback from lawmakers? Any chance you see of a bipartisan agreement this year?
Well, the good news here is that there is bipartisan interest in addressing the harms of social media and very broad recognition, not just among lawmakers, but among the public, about these harms. People want to take action here. And that's why last year I actually called for a series of steps in the Surgeon General's advisory on social media that I issued. And those include steps that policymakers would take to protect kids from harmful content, like to protect them from harassment and bullying, and from features that would seek to lure their developing brains into excessive use, which takes away from sleep and in-person interaction. So Congress can take those steps right now. And there's broad support. They haven't gone the full distance to actually not only pass legislation, but put it into effect. And until that happens, our kids are unfortunately going to continue to have the same experiences they're having today. So that's why I'm pushing for action from Congress. A label is part of that broader suite of actions. But again, the urgency could not be greater given the youth mental health crisis we're living through.
And you can hear the full interview with Dr. Vivek Murthy by heading to our Spectrum News app, available on the App Store and Google Play. Well, the first tropical storm warning for 2024 is in effect for parts of Texas. Cities across the state are getting ready for the weather system, which is expected to develop this season. Spectrum's John Salazar shows us what residents are doing to stay dry.
People in the Rio Grande Valley
later this afternoon, we'll knock on doors again.
Are picking up shovels and the pace to brace for heavy rains now brewing in the Gulf of Mexico.
My thought is, let's do what we can to stay safe.
Belia Corbett is one of 1.3 million people in this region.
I've been doing this forever.
Who know firsthand.
Here we are helping.
When it rains, it pours. It's more than just a cliche.
But this mark right here, that's how high the water was.
3 feet to be exact.
And that house was underwater.
The National Weather Service predicts parts of the Texas Gulf Coast could see rains drop between 2 and 7 inches.
Oh yeah, we've been busy, sir.
So municipalities area-wide are helping citizens prepare for possible enforcement for expected rising waters.
This was 2018.
Corbett kept memories of the last time Mother Nature pounded the property she manages.
When we get really hard rain, it starts overflowing into the property.
The RGV native is not slowing down in preparing herself, her tenants, and this property.
I'm sending all my tenants just important information from the Hidalgo County Office of Emergency Management.
Not if,
So it's just letting people know.
but when
There's a risk for flood.
the tropical storm makes landfall.
I've been doing this forever, so we got to look after each other.
John Salazar, Spectrum News.
Keeping old traditions alive by forging new skills. Coming up on Spectrum News, what one club is doing to bring back a medieval art form.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hi there, meteorologist Robert Santos. Well, on Tuesday, we go from a slight risk of severe weather across parts of the plains here to basically a different weather pattern, somewhat of a different weather pattern for us on Wednesday. Now, we don't see a slight to enhanced risk of severe weather here. It's mostly marginal in these areas you see in green, but we are going to be watching, yes, some heavy rainfall coming across. We're just not expecting any tornadoes, for instance, out of this system here with this intense plume of moisture coming across southern Texas. Let's check the timing of this. So this is expected to mainly bring some damaging winds and excessive rainfall to the point of some flash flooding threats out in these areas here. So here's the future cast. You can see there all in central time up there in the upper banner. So you'll see it's a spread. You see it spreading towards the west for the lunch hour, San Antonio, Nuevo Laredo. And then the western half of Texas will begin to start to feel the impacts of that for Wednesday night and then even into Thursday morning, as you can see here. Now, once again, I mentioned flash flooding is possible with some heavy rainfall out of this. This is on top of a tropical disturbance that we're watching down here. This is a potential tropical cyclone 1. And when you take a look at the potential path for this, it is expected to become a tropical storm for Wednesday afternoon, making landfall in northeastern Mexico. But don't let this path fool you. It is expected to bring some heavy rainfall, some damaging winds, and potential for some flash flooding as well, not only in northeast Texas, but even throughout northeast Mexico, rather, but even throughout southern Texas. And so that's why this entire area here is under a tropical storm warning because of those impacts. Potentially, we could have ranges maximum 15 inches. So it is going to be a big rainmaker for these areas. Look at Houston. Temperatures here in the 80s, coming 90s Friday. But yes, rain is in the forecast for the next, for much of the rest of the week. Dallas, farther north, you're not getting the rain, but you'll be warming up into the 90s come Thursday and Friday. Bangor, Maine. This is where you're getting the heat for at least a couple more days with some rain in the forecast Thursday. And then your temperatures dropping down into the upper 70s in the weekend, a little more relief again from the heat. New York City, we've got some low 90s in the mix with some chances for showers on Friday. And you see here, June 25th through July 1st, this is the Climate Prediction Center's precipitation outlook. All these areas expected to have a wetter than average outlook and then drier than average right around here.
Arrested and charged with a DWI on Long Island Tuesday. Police say the 43-year-old was pulled over after running a stop sign and failing to stay in his lane. A court document shows the singer's eyes were bloodshot and performed poorly on the sobriety test. He's been released without bail and is due back in court July 26th. The city of Boston will celebrate the Celtics' record-breaking 18th NBA championship this Friday with a duck boat parade. It'll begin in front of TD Garden before making its way through downtown. And Boston's mayor is expecting well over 1 million people to attend. The Celtics defeated the Dallas Mavericks Monday night. To win the series, Jaylen Brown was named Most Valuable Player. And meantime, on the ice, the Florida Panthers look to make some history of their own tonight. The Panthers host the Edmonton Oilers in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final. Florida is just a win away from claiming everyday necessity during medieval times, creating weapons, armor, and tools. Now, a club in Kentucky is forging new life into the medieval art form. Spectrum's Jordan Grants reports on how its members are inspiring the next generation of blacksmiths.
Some may say this ancient trade has been burnt to ashes. But people like Joseph Cross are reigniting the fire that is blacksmithing.
I just love keeping old traditions going.
The Denture technician heard about the First Bill Blacksmithing Club after watching Colin Sage win the History Channel's blacksmithing competition show Forged in Fire. He joined and quickly asked his wife to come along, molding the bi-weekly sessions into something more.
It's the best date night we could possibly have. It's a good chance for us to work on communication, cooperation.
Still, a community makerspace in Louisville, Sage wanted to share his knowledge and love for the craft.
I wanted to get into teaching, help people. How do I share this craft with people? And then through working at First Build, I realized, like, why not? It's a community space, it's a maker space. Like, why not marry those two ideas?
The club now has over 35 members and meets Tuesdays and Thursdays at First Build. making everything from swords to spoons to forks.
You know, they're interested in crafts. That kind of get your hands dirty attitude, getting involved, doing things that interest you, artistic things that you love. That's all on the rise right now. And I mean, of course, pop culture has shown us that medieval things, knights, swords, all that stuff is super cool.
Sage says the members leave with much more than a new memento.
Seeing that you took something from nothing, you took a piece of...
The club is open to the public. Reporting in Louisville, Jordan Grant, Spectrum News.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90s coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all in the field and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Today, I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars. Really tall. I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands? Yes. You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
That's why I'm never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go. Babe, I'm never gonna let you go. No, no, never gonna let you go.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna